12 years. 12 years.
12 years.
We met through the Junior League of Palo Alto, and Frederique has just had an amazing career in the Valley, working for Yahoo, for Flickr, for SmugMug, for PhotoBucket, and she spent the last 4 years at Uber. So many of you may have seen the blog post that went around a couple weeks ago called Harnessing, or was it last month?
May.
May, okay. May, called Harnessing Happiness, which was a remarkable just piece about being both a woman in the Valley and also just being an employee in the Valley and being an innovator and considering how you grow your career and develop yourself. So I'm going to ask Frederique a whole bunch of questions, and then you guys get to ask Frederique a whole bunch of questions, and we'll have a good time.
Thank you.
Hi. Okay, so why don't we just have you do a brief introduction of you and your career and kind of how you ended up where you are today.
Sure. So thanks everyone for being here and spending the time listening to me. I've been in the Valley for 15 years, and I came here because I had this dream when I was a little girl to become a businesswoman. So I watched Working Girl on TV, and I really, and it's just recently been released on Netflix again, so I encourage you to watch it. Harrison Ford is in it. I was obsessed about becoming a businesswoman, and I asked my dad, how do I get to be a businesswoman? And like, you need to study engineering, because in France, if you do engineering, you can do whatever you want. So from that point on, my goal was to study engineering. I was fortunate to be good in math and physics. And then, so I studied engineering. Then I studied in London to learn to speak English fluently to come to the US, because for me, businesswoman meant being in the US. I'm originally from south of France. And I studied engineering, moved to London, and then from London, I started to contact all my alumni network that was in Silicon Valley to ask if they were hiring, and I came here, interviewed with them, and found a job in the Valley.
Amazing. So take us through your progression through the Valley, because I know you started, you sort of you hit the 2002 like bubble burst.
Yes, so I moved here in 2000.
Okay.
And then after 2 years, I was in market research, started working in a market research company. And after 2 years, I got laid off. So hit the burst. A lot of my French friends were moving back to France, and I fought really hard to stay here. So moved to France. She had started at Google at the time, so she was going through a wild ride. It was the early days of Google, and I saw it all. It was pretty incredible. And woke up at 8 a.m. every morning, looking for a job, networking on very early social networks at the time.
Yeah.
Facebook didn't exist.
Yeah,
Friendster didn't exist. Very hard days, very, very hard days. And finally found a job as a product manager in an enterprise software company, and was there for 2.5 years.
And what drew you to going from engineering to market research to going into product?
I think that at the time, being an engineer didn't have a cool, sexy vibe to it. You felt like you would be in front of your computer all day long. It was not like being an engineer and being at the table and brainstorming with a PM and the designer. It was not the sexy thing. And I'm kind of outgoing and social.
Tiny bit.
Tiny bit. I love taking selfies on Instagram.
Very true.
That's my specialty. You look at my feed and like, holy shit, I need to stop like that.
Don't actually follow it. It'll make you like hate your life.
So I just thought that it was not for me, and that I could still be technical, but do something a little bit more outgoing, so to speak.
Right. And so how did you then, you went through Yahoo. So, I mean, this is Yahoo at the heyday. So just some background on that, and then moving on to Uber, which I know is like.
So I was doing enterprise software for 2.5 years, and at some point I'm like, I don't like that product. I cannot relate to an enterprise software product. It doesn't make sense. And I was obsessed with Friendster and Orkut at the time, like early social networks, and I could look at the product and be like, oh, they should add this, and I want my friend to add to my guest book because I feel better about myself. Like all these things that made me feel really like resonated with me. So I decided to interview with Yahoo and got a job in the Yahoo Yellow Pages team. So not sexy at all, but by the time I joined, by the time they transferred my visa, they started to be Yahoo Local.
Oh, okay.
So it was the emergence of social on a very business listing product. So this is also when Facebook was rising, and Yelp was starting to emerge. So just working on the social strategy of Yahoo in the early days.
And how did you go, I mean, how did you find the opportunities at Yahoo? So, you know, you've made some interesting jumps, so how did you pivot yourself that way?
So I have never got a job through sending my resume out. It was always through connections. And one of the leaders in the Yahoo Yellow Pages team had sent this email to friend and friend of friends on Orkut, because at the time the graph was not very rich, so you had the ability to send emails to the friends of friends. And he sent this email out of the blue saying, I'm looking for MBA interns for my team in Yahoo Yellow Pages. And I reply, and I'm always willing to help. So I'm always finding ways to help people wherever I go. And I replied to him right away, and I'm like, hey, I have roommates in Palo Alto that are MBA students. Like, I can forward your email. What do you need? And then I sent that, and I'm like, wait a minute. Is that Yahoo? I want to work on a social, like on a consumer internet company. Yeah. What if I ask him if he has something for me? So I sent him a second email, and he's like, sure, let's talk. And this is how we started talking. And I think my passion, even though I didn't have any consumer internet background, I think my passion and the chemistry with the team was so good that it just happened.
And how does that, I mean, that has to be a scary proposition to just send someone that you kind of know. I mean, early social media was not cool. Let's just be clear.
And
really
my friends
cool.
were like, "You're crazy! Like
it's like creepers.
Dating. And are you looking for a guy?" And this was not the time where saying that you meet someone on Match.com was acceptable.
No,
you
didn't admit it. You didn't admit it.
So when I would be on Friendster, people are like, "Oh," and Facebook was not there, and Friendster was really for dating, like the social networks were for dating. So my friends were like making fun of me, and I'm like, "No, I just love the product and I love the feature. Like, I just loved it." So.
This is why I love her. So as you've gone through and pursued your and obviously then you left Yahoo and you went to PhotoBucket for a year, and then worked SmugBug for 2 years, and then talk a little bit about Uber.
Yes. So left Yahoo during 2009. So it was like a not really good time in the Valley. It was nobody, I think, was super happy in the Valley, and so I left Yahoo, worked at 2 companies that were pretty small. And I don't think that was the right cultural fit for me. Like after being at Yahoo, that was a big company where I was feeling really good with my colleagues. I realized that the next company I wanted to join had to be the right cultural fit. And so I spent a year consulting and worked on a bunch of projects. Things were coming my way from Yahoo connections, Magma connections, until one day at Starbucks on University Avenue in Palo Alto. I used to live in Palo Alto. One of the investors of Uber that I knew saw me, and I was in my sweats, and I'm like, I don't want him to see me. I have no makeup on. And of course, he came to say hi. And he's like, what are you up to? And I'm like, I'm consulting. I'm doing my thing. He's like, send me an email. We need to talk. I want you in one of my portfolio companies. And of course, I reached out to him. And we sat down. He walked me through a few of his companies, TaskRabbit. So it was 2012.
Wow.
TaskRabbit, Birchbox, Uber, and a few others. And we went through all of them. And he was like giving me the pros and cons and what they were looking for. And he made intros. And I met with all of them. And TaskRabbit had just hired a head of product. And I was like, damn it, I missed TaskRabbit. Such a good company. It was a hot stuff at the time. It was led by a woman, first marketplace company. Like it was just like, I was kind of, And then talked to the recruiter at Uber, and she was based in Seattle at the time. Uber was probably like 40 people big. And I just had this connection with her. I just had this phone call, and I left the meeting, left the conversation feeling like, really, you know when you feel energized by someone? And she said, you know, we already have a head of product, but I really enjoy our conversation, and once we open a new head for product, I will call you. And every month she would follow up with me and be like, I'm going to San Francisco, going to meet with the head of product, and I'll let you know if something happened. And 3 months later, she calls me again, and I was in no rush to join a company. I was really good with consulting, making good money, having flexibility. And then in a week I got the job. Like it was just the right job, the right team, the right CEO. Like I met with Travis, and I really love his vision, and it happened.
So Uber was 70 people when you joined?
Yeah.
And so this is an amazing stat. How many cities did you launch Uber in?
So we were 14 cities when I joined, and when I left, it was 400 cities. And we launched internationally from day one. So I was at some very early days, I was copy-pasting strings of characters that my community manager in each city would translate for me, and go in the code and duplicate the file and swap the strings from English to Dutch, from English to Swedish. So we had no UI, we had nothing. We would just be super scrappy about it.
Wow. So obviously, I mean, I think you've had this tremendous experience going through the Valley when, being a woman in these roles has been very different. And I think we both probably have seen how it's changed in the last decade plus. Yes. What are the sort of the larger trends that you've seen, and what do you see? How much has it changed? How much has it improved? I mean, obviously it's better, but is it really, what are your thoughts sort of on where we are and where we're headed?
I don't think it's necessarily better. I think that now there is more awareness, but also more of a stigma as well, because we talk so much about it that sometimes I'm not really into the quota. Like, I don't think it's making us any favor by saying we need half and a half. Like, then doesn't mean that I'm here because of a quota or because I'm good. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I don't know if it's better. I just think that you really need to believe in yourself, that you're bringing something to the table and fighting for who you are and what value you bring to the team.
Right. And what have you encountered obstacles being a woman in the Valley, and sort of, I think you particularly, I have to believe with the early days of Uber that was different.
I didn't feel being a woman at Uber as an issue, interestingly enough. I think that I met with Travis and I had chemistry with him, and I think Travis is actually really good with women. He really respects women, and he really he surrounded himself with a lot of women early on. And I was adding supply, and when I would fuck up, he would tell me like, hey, bring it, do something about it, and I believe in you, and you can inspire engineers, and do it. So, he believed in myself, and he believed in me, and believed in other women in the company. I think that I had to deal with managers that were insecure, whether they were female or male, and when it happens, it's nasty.
Yeah.
Because there is this competition going on, because we're here because we're strong. We're here because we took risk and we got rejected and we kept going. And I think that not that many men take risks, because once they take a risk, they get yes as an answer right away. So we're used to being rejected. We're used to keep going. We're used to be resilient. And I think this is a strength and something we should own and really use. But I think that when you deal with insecure people, whether they are male manager or female manager, it can be really, really bad.
And what are some of the qualities you've pulled upon beyond strength? I mean, I think that that's so true. The idea of rejection is something that we're probably more familiar with. But what are the qualities that you've pulled on to really be able to deal with that?
That's a very good question. I think always being true to myself and being myself. Like, I don't try to be what someone wants me to be. And so it means that if you don't like me, then we shouldn't probably work together. But if you like me, it's going to be really, really awesome, because you don't put a mask, and so you're always yourself. And I know even in the early days of Uber, I love taking selfies, and I would take selfies with everyone I know and turn it into a joke. And then people would come to me at a party, Uber party, and be like, Frederique, you forgot to ask me to take a selfie with me. And kind of be funny about yourself and not take yourself seriously, but at the same time, when I'm at work, I'm very driven and very, my boss would tell me, you command, authority. And so it's finding a balance between being a woman and making funny jokes, but at the same time, when I work, and I'm not gonna mess, you don't mess with me, and we're gonna make it about the product and ship a good product, and it doesn't have to do with my personal, who I am and
Right.
my role. Even my role is like, let's have ideas come from everywhere and work together.
You've talked, I think one of the things that was so interesting about the blog post was the idea of elegance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having known you for so long, there's no other word I would ever use to describe you. I think I've been walking around the building going, she's just a badass, just don't worry about it, she's just a badass. But like, can you talk a little bit more about that idea and the idea of elegance and what that means in a business setting?
I think it's just like it's very difficult to explain. Like, I think the blog post is doing a good job at it, but I think it's the way I conduct my life. I don't take things personally. If something bad happened, I'm just moving on. So I've been laid off twice because of economic issues and like nothing personal. And a lot of my coworkers that were in the same boat got angry and resentful. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to turn it into an opportunity and maybe find the best next job. Maybe it's an opportunity to reflect on myself and pause. And it was scary. I'm not saying it was not scary. But at the same time, kind of look at what is the opportunity in what's happening. So kind of not being holding grudges. So kind of letting it flow. And I would say just like be grateful. Like, I'm just a grateful person that is always like being thankful about my health, thankful about my friends. So if something happened, I'm always looking at what's the positive that is happening. And I think this makes you look like a positive person, and it attracts even more good to you. Like, I have a friend who is like just left her job to take a sabbatical, and she's interviewing with this company that is a hot company right now. And she didn't get the job, and she sent me this email from Thailand, and she's like, I didn't get the job, they got someone senior, and blah, 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 and I'm so upset. And I'm like, you're in the best place in the world in Thailand. You're taking a sabbatical, and your pictures are amazing, and you have this smile, and just enjoy what you have right now, and maybe in 2 months they will come back with something better, because the no email was like, let's keep talking about other opportunities. So I'm like, just keep this positive feeling that you have and think about it, when you come back, and then think about, it's not the end of the world. If this company doesn't work, something else is going to work.
Yeah, it's great.
Long answer to
No, and I think it's great. And I think when you, in the blog post, the thing I thought was the no keeping score.
Yeah.
That was like such an interesting comment that I think fundamentally as people, sometimes it's really easy to start keeping score, and just the ability to not keep score and just to say, okay, it is.
It is, and I'm not into like tit for tat, so I'm just a very giving person, and then if it comes back to me, it's great. If it doesn't, but people have been very generous to me in my career. Like, they sat down and work with me on finding the right next step for me. And when I help someone, they're like, oh, how can I? Yeah, I owe you something. How can I pay you back? And I'm like, just pay it forward. Just like, I'm good. I'm good. If I need something, I will ask you. And if I don't need anything, like, help someone else, and just keep the momentum going with what you have in your life.
And that's an important part, I think, the role of networking in your personal story, and how do you view that for people starting their career, and how do you develop the idea of a network?
I had someone asking me on Slack, there is a woman in product Slack channel, and if you're interested, ping me and I can add you to it. A woman was like, I'm not single, I don't have time to network, how do I do it? She has kids and she cannot network, and I think it's in all those little things you do, whether it's your coworker and you give them a compliment, whether it's in Facebook and you like a picture or put a positive comment. I realize that I'm always when I'm on Facebook, I always like or comment something positive, and I don't even do it on purpose. It's just like, I want to tell someone that they have a beautiful family. I want to tell someone that this is awesome what they're doing. And I think these little things, I don't realize it, but I think the people are very grateful for it, and it just comes back, like, it's a form of networking and keeping in touch with people. There are some people I met 3 times in my entire life, and when I meet them, people are like, oh, how long have you known each other? And I'm like, I think we met 3 times, but it feels like we've been forever friends.
And how have you used that to then, I mean, you talked about a little bit earlier, to then develop your career and to harness like finding the next role, and even like what you're doing now in terms of like looking around and exploring what's possible. How have you used those network connections then to drive your career forward?
I would say identify what you want and ask your network how they can help. I think, like, I'm looking at my next step, and for the longest time I was like, I'm too afraid to tell I want to do venture capital and I want to invest, so I'm going to be, because I don't know if I can do it and I've never done it before. And what was surprising is I was having coffee with a guy friend I used to work with at Photo Bucket one morning, and he's like, so what are you up to? And I'm like, I'm kind of looking at doing venture. He's like, that would be amazing, and I can introduce you to 5 people. Like, oh my God, like, let me start. And he took his phone and started to make intro. And I realized, like, I'm so silly. I'm the one who was putting barrier to my own. And when you tell people, they're like not judging you, they're not evaluating you. They're like, I'm going to help you. And I think this, like, I used to be very confident because it was from product to product to product jobs. So I knew what I was doing. But then going into a next thing, I was kind of self-limiting myself by not telling people. And then another VC that I met is like, you need to tell people, because if you join a firm and they didn't know you were looking, they're going to get upset. Because they want to have a right to tell you no or to tell you yes, but you cannot just tell half of the people and then, once you have the job, like, half of it is going to be upset. So it was kind of like, oh, I didn't see it that way. That makes sense. So I think, like, telling, even within your team, if you're looking to change team or if you're looking to do something else, like, have the courage to tell people what you want, and they can help you do it. They can help you grow the skills to do it and be proactive with it.
So if I think you have the courage to tell people what you want and then to articulate it, and how do you then suss out, a job interview process is, if you're lucky, 4 people that you talk to in a company?
What do you mean by that?
Like, you go through, 4 or 5 interviews, right? How do you suss out for yourself that this is the right fit?
Hard. I think chemistry with people is the best one. I've realized over time that when I get out of a meeting and I feel energized by the meeting, it's a very, very good sign. And yeah, like the interview with the Uber recruiter was everything. I just was very happy. And then I met with the head of product that was younger than me, less experienced, and we started to brainstorm on ideas, and I'm like, I want to work with this woman. I don't care about her. Like, I just felt really good with her. And I think chemistry and vibe is very important. It takes time, because I realized that I was not always trusting my gut, and it's good to fine-tune it. It's like building a product where you learn things by experimenting. It's good to, like, I had some experience where I was like, this is not the right company to join. And then 2 years later, I'm like, I knew it was not the right company to join. So fine-tune your gut feeling and do your post-mortem for your life, like you do for a product. Do a post-mortem and think back and be like, did I see signs that I didn't want to admit for myself? And it can be for a relationship or for any, like, friendship, boyfriends, product, career choices. We have something inside of us that kind of tell us that something is right or something is not. And sometimes you need to go through the hard stuff to learn. Yeah. As long as you, like you say, you manage it with elegance, and you see the positive side, and you look at it and you're like, I learned that from this experience. And you will always learn something. If you're wise enough to look at what you learn, it's going to be positive anyway. Yeah, failure is a place of opportunity versus a place of failure. Exactly. And life is a process. Yeah. That's what's incredible. And realize that nobody gives a shit. Like, I have a friend who is a famous blogger, and he's like, Frederique, it took me a year to realize that, people didn't care about this failure. But you need to realize people are so obsessed with themselves that they won't really pay attention to what you're doing. So true. Think about it. Like, do you really care about what your neighbor is doing when you're like, oh my God, what will people think of me, blah, blah, blah. So true. Okay, so taking a step back from people who are obsessed with themselves. Yeah. The idea, so when your blog post came out, obviously the people that we have in common were
it was all over Facebook. And then there was this interesting moment where a bunch of old-timey boxers started posting it all over Facebook too. And it was sort of this, but they posted it from the perspective of the idea of team and the idea of everybody sort of all being in it together. And it resonated a lot with the sort of this early days of, you know, probably Uber and Box, when it was just like, I used to call it the ride or die crew. You know, it was like, okay, we're gonna go. But the idea of winning as a team and how important that is to your development as a person and in your career. Can you speak a little to that?
I really think that team is everything. Like it's, I think it's also come down to the diversity. I think diversity is so important, not just from a woman versus men, but from we all have weaknesses and strengths, and we all complement each other on one level. So we can be men versus, like men and women, different ethnicity background, different nationalities, different skill sets, like engineers versus product. And I think that when you bring people together and you have this trust between people, and you really try to complement each other on the strengths level, so you bring your strengths to the table, and you build on each other, and you don't have this ego that kind of gets in the way, and you really are vulnerable to say, you know, I don't know what I don't know, or I don't know this and I want to learn, or I can bring this. I think this is magical. And I think this is something that was incredible in the early days of Uber. I would say that it was great to be French, because we had a lot of international cities, and I had empathy towards my international coworkers. I was a product person, and I love working with engineers and designers, and all have ideas to bring to the table to build products. I love being a woman because I was very nurturing to my engineers, and very, like, you know, helping everybody like grow as an individual within the team. So I think that I had my strengths, and it worked very well with other people's strengths. And when you have trust, and you can all say, like, I have this weakness, and can you complement me on this or help me grow on that level? I think it's magical.
Have you found being open about your weaknesses and that own sense of self-awareness has helped you grow that sense of team?
I say I would work more on my strengths and own my strengths a bit more. Like as a woman, it's like, what are things that make me different? I don't want to be a man. I don't want to act like a man. What are the things that are very special to me as a woman and as an individual that would make me valuable to the team? And I think this was, and of course I had weaknesses that you can work more on the tactical level with your performance reviews and being a better communicator and being more this, more that. But I think that if you own your strengths and you're like, you know, as an individual, these are the things that I'm really, really good at, and you can mentor someone to be good at this, or you can complement someone and be a better team, I think this is a lot. This is everything.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about building your own safety net.
Yeah.
Because I think, especially from your story, I mean, you showed up and was like, okay, here I am. And how did you go about building that safety net? And what are the strategies you did that you could impart to share that knowledge?
So I think that's something I always did in my life that has been really, really good, is that I always acted from a place of power. So whether I was moving from one job to another, or even moving from no job to a job, I would always be like, I'm not going to compromise myself. And I will always do something that is right for me, and I'm ready to walk away. So the first job, when I lost the first job, I only had $7,000 in the bank. I didn't have much savings, so I crashed at a friend for 3 months. I put everything in storage, had a suitcase, and stayed at a friend for 3 months until I found a job. But during that time, I said no to 2 jobs that could have let me stay in the US, and then I got a job offer in France that I said no to because I really wanted to be in the US. And within 1 week, I got star aligned, but I decided not to compromise myself and really go for what I wanted, and just standing up for myself. Like, if you don't do it for yourself, who else is going to do it for you? Like, nobody. Yeah. And I learned from that experience with $7,000 in the bank that you need a safety net, like from a financial standpoint. And I just met recently a VC that told me that the very first thing he learned in his career was to have some fuck you money. And I'm like, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And just have like a safety net to be like, I can walk away whenever I want,
Yeah.
for whichever reason I want. If it doesn't match my values or my fire is shutting down because these people are abusive to me, like psychology. And it's the same thing in a relationship. It's like, do you want to be stuck with someone that is not right for you? So I think this safety net from a financial standpoint is helping, but also being true to yourself and always questioning, is it something that is matching my values? Is it, and I realize that some things work out when you really tell people this is what I want and this is, like, you find something. You have to work hard and hustle, but it's worth it.
It's interesting because when you think about safety net, I mean, you're really talking about building your own safety. It's really you are your own safety net.
It's like, I always felt like you're on your own. Like you can, friends can help you, and I have amazing friends and amazing girlfriends that are the world to me. And I would, even the junior league where we met are like incredible women that have been everything to support you, to push you outside of your comfort zone and everything. But at the end of the day, you're with yourself. And nobody else, well, for good or for bad, like when someone is telling you need to do this job or join this company because it's a hot company, yeah, but are you going to be happy? Like, is it really what you want to do? Like, maybe everyone is going to think it's sexy, but you are the one who is day in, day out in this company and in these jobs. You want to be it right for you. And when I joined Uber, people were like, you're crazy, it's a taxi company, it's expensive. My mom is like, well, they have an app, why do they need you? Like, it's like, we already have an app. But it's like, you need to believe in yourself enough, and over time you will believe in yourself even more, and then at some point people will be like, I think you know what you're doing, I will trust what you're doing next. Right. But it takes a lot of self-confidence to be like, I'm going to power through and I'm going to make it happen.
And do you feel like you develop that self-confidence by sort of just saying, I'm going to do it? Or did you have to work? Did you get that from other people, or did you get that from yourself?
I think I got it a lot from my parents, where they worked really hard, and I think they taught me this self-respect about you do what you need to do for yourself. Like, we were not trying to keep up with the Jonases and look at the neighbors. Like, my mom always told me, you don't compare yourself to other people. Like, you're yourself, and this is who you are, and if you try to play that game, it will never work. And so I never compare myself to anyone. I always compliment other people because I think that everyone is special in their own way, and people are like, why is she so nice? Well, and I just don't think that complimenting someone or being nice to someone is taking anything away from me. I just don't, and actually it's enriching my life because people are attracted to me that way. And just so I had this self-respect and this, I'm good on my own from very early on, and then I iterated over time, because I tell you, when you lose a job and you're here and you're illegal in the country, it's scary.
Yeah. It's
very scary, and you're on your own, and you work hard. Like, and even today, I'm unemployed, but I wake up every morning at 8 a.m. I take meetings, 4-5 meetings a day. People are like, oh, can we meet for coffee? And I'm busy, and I have a plan, and I'm going through that, and it's a process to join a venture capital. If you look at website of venture capital, it's all male everywhere, and you're like, I need to break in, and it's a different ball game than breaking in into product or engineering. So it's a new challenge, and I'm ready to take it. And yeah.
So what defines happiness for you as you look at your the happiness you had in product, and now the happiness and the challenge of going into the VC world? What defines happiness for you in a work environment?
The people, working with incredible people and trusting the people you're with, I think, is super important, and realizing the impact you make. So being surrounded by incredible people will just energize you and make your life better, like seeing you as amazing. Yeah. And then if I can make an impact in your life, and you can come out of this meeting a little bit wiser or a little bit more bolder and support each other a little bit more and be open to being vulnerable to each other, Like that, for me, that's an impact. And I want that.
That's great. And what's driving you towards the VC route?
I think I'm a curious person by nature, and I've done product for 10 plus years, and I know how to do it. Like I know how to launch a product, build a team, launch a product, inspiring a team,
Right.
you know, iterating. I know how to do it. I also know that after Uber, it's going to be very difficult to find a product that is just as impactful and as fast growing.
Right.
And working for a CEO like Travis that is so bold and so driven and so pushing you out of your comfort zone every 5 minutes with that self-driving car one day, you know, something else another day. So I think that I've kind of reached my max on the product side.
Yeah.
And starting to talk to entrepreneurs, I feel like I'm inspiring CEOs more than they're inspiring me. So I'd rather work, like I just feel like no other CEOs can be like Travis.
Right.
And I can teach them more about how to be an Uber than them telling me how to do product or build a product. So if I can maximize my impact on 10 companies that I'm investing in versus working for one company, I think that would be awesome.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. I think we should open up for some questions. Who wants to go first? Go for it. No.
This is awesome. All of your insights. So you've been in product for so long, and you've definitely contributed to a lot of successful products. What do you make to create product? Like, what is it that makes a product so successful, like product?
I think the value proposition is super important. Like you want to understand like what you're trying to solve and which value you're bringing to the world. And I think also understanding like how needed this product is. Like I always give the example that, you know, the on-demand economy is really big right now, and everyone wants to be an Uber for something, but how many companies for Uber for something do we need? Like, okay, when you need to go to Box and at 4 p.m. and you're going to pay an Uber to come here, and you
Right.
need to. If you have dry cleaning, do you really need a service to do your dry cleaning, or can you just postpone it until you really need it and maybe go yourself? Like, what price do you need to pay for a service, and how high does this price has to be? So kind of understanding, like, is it really something that people really, really need, or is it nice to have? And food delivery is great, but do you really need food delivery? Can you wait an hour? Probably. Like some people will wait in line if they need to, but if you really need to go to the airport, you're gonna pay 2 times surging if you really, really need to do it. So I think like understanding like what problem does it solve and how important it is super important. Yeah. I have. After SmackMag, I kind of had this idea to aggregate all the coupons from all the Groupons and of the world. And I think I could have done it, but I was scared. So I started wireframing and talking to people. I think I really could have done it, but first I was scared to go and raise the money and build a team. And second of all, I felt lonely. Like after being in a team and working with a team and being alone and talking to people and doing my own specs and wireframe, and like I missed working with a team. And of course I would have had to build a team, and eventually I would have had a team, but for the longest time I'm like, this is hard. And I was afraid to find a co-founder that it's a long-term commitment. So there was a lot of inhibition. I'm not saying that I would not do it one day, but I want the right idea. And I want to be a bit stronger. I'm not perfect. I'm scared too sometimes. What do you mean? Instead of tech, another? Yeah. I think we're pretty spoiled in tech as women. Like I've seen other industries that are much more conservative. I think it's pretty good to be a woman in tech, and I think that as a PM working with engineers, they love working with women. Like just like you're friendly and you're more nurturing, and as a woman I've seen it's been amazing to work with some of the best of engineers. I cannot really speak further, but I have friends who are in other industries, and it's really, really hard to break in the same way we are being respected in this industry.
Yeah.
So this is something that worked really, really well at Uber, is that our performance review system was to give top 3 and bottom 3. So we would give 3 weaknesses and 3 top strengths and 3 bottom weaknesses to each person you work with, and we would actually sit down with a person and tell them in front of them. So which is really good because it would build trust.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like, oh, my manager is telling me and I know exactly what this is and this sucks. And also, they would also tell you you're 3 positive, which is amazing to hear. Like, people don't always tell you you're amazing. Like,
sure.
My engineer would like, you're so passionate and you're driving us and it's amazing. And I'm like, oh my God, this actually means something to people. Like, I do it naturally, but people actually pay attention. So that was actually good. But yeah, like one of my bottom 3 was focus, because I love building new stuff, I love starting new teams, and I love helping everyone. And I would be like all over the place, and my boss is like, you need to fucking focus and finish this. Like, can I hire someone to help on the focus side with one specific part of the product? Another one was communication and sending daily updates to all stakeholders. And as much as I love writing emails, I love writing them on my own schedule, and that when they are supposed to be due. So I would procrastinate on that. So it's just like being disciplined about it and feeling like if you don't do it, you're probably sabotaging yourself, and you're not doing part of the to-dos you need to do to meet your job requirements. So it sucks, but sometimes you need to just power through and send the weekly update and the daily update and yeah.
Hourly update.
Hourly update.
I thought I saw another hand over here. Oh.
I think that you really need to focus on your strengths. Like, you need to focus on your weaknesses because it's part of your job description. So there are things that you need to do, like communicate, like especially as a product manager, communicating with the stakeholders. Like I felt like I was too overwhelming and sending too many updates, and that was too much. But like, no, they really, really need it. And so these are things, when it's part of your job description, you need to do it. But I think that if you can really focus on your strengths and then find the right job for your strengths, and not just like very granular strengths, but big picture strengths. Like, I know that I'm a people person, and I'm very curious. And curious means that I will always want to launch new product and launch new teams, whether it's at Uber. And I'm like, maybe being curious means that I want to be in venture capital and learn about new technology and always be challenged every day with new teams, new challenges, new technologies, everything. So it's kind of fine-tuning like what you're really interested in and what you're passionate about and what you're good at, and try to find the best job for yourself. And I think in big companies like Box or Uber, you have the opportunity to move around in the same company and really like focus on what you can do well within the same company. So sometimes it's like talking to another team and be like, what do you do every day? Do you think I would be the right fit? Or do you think, and try to understand if your skills and your strengths match that team or that product, and keep going. And I think being in a big company has these pros when it comes to that.
Yeah, it goes back to the idea of being self-aware of like
Yeah.
your strengths, so you know what you're super good at and what you really aren't.
Yeah.
And then
Keep going,
Yeah.
iterating. Like your career and yourself is a product that you constantly iterating on. It's like you have a mission, and what is your goal? Like for me, the goal was to be a businesswoman. I'm a businesswoman, but I can be like a better businesswoman. And I'm like, all the things I've done, all the companies I've joined, all the, experiments I've done, all the, failures and all the success means that I've been iterating on that path, and venture capital is probably the next version of my product.
right.
And it's probably not the last product, but it's like iterating on constantly being aware and like looking at data, so to speak. There are some data metrics in your life that you want to measure against. Following your intuition, like a product, you don't always have the answer for a product, and you want to understand like what's the leap of faith you want to take in the next career, and go for it. And then the team, your friends is your team. Your family is your team.
Yeah.
Like how can you, bounce ideas off your team and get their feedback and incorporate it or ignore it? Life is a product.
Life is a product. Life is also a highway. I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the one piece of advice you would have given yourself 15 years ago?
That everything is going to be okay. I've stressed so much about everything and all the details. Even now I'm stressing. Like, I just turned 40 and I still don't have kids, and still wondering if being super honest, I want to have kids one day, and you're stressing out, and I'm like, I know that 2 years from now I'm going to have everything I want, and I'm going to be like, why did you stress about it? So trying to incorporate what I've done before in my career, and being aware that I shouldn't really stress and just enjoy the ride.
Great. I have some kids you can borrow if you want.
What?
I have some kids you can borrow. You
Sure.
could teach some French. Do we have any other questions for Frederique? Go for it.
Talk a lot about inspiring teams, inspiring like your peers and your product team. What kinds of things do you think inspires most to work towards the common vision?
I think that's something that works really well, is being passionate about the product yourself. Like, after 2 years working on the driver experience at Uber and building all the tools to manage our supply and get our supply on board, I moved to the employee experience, so managing our employees, onboarding them, recruiting them, building an intranet, so building all the tools for the employees. And it's not sexy. Like, it's not visible to the extent.
Right.
Outside of the company, it's building a lot of internal tools within the IT organization. It's not sexy at all, but I felt so passionate about it. I'm like, the impact is going to be huge, because if we save 1 hour of time for every employee, the bottom line on 7,000 employees is going to be huge. And I think if you believe in the mission of your own product, and you can explain and articulate the impact to your team, you're golden. And you need to say, this is the impact we're making, and this is why I believe this is going to be the best thing. And then it happens. Like, same thing for volunteering. We were part of the Junior League, and we worked on the most amazing project. Like, kids that were from drug addict families, and
How to read.
teaching them how to read, teaching them parents how to read to their kids at night to make an impact on their life. And I remember Naomi saw me ask for pastries for one of the events, and she's like, oh my God, you need to start doing fundraising. And I'm like, no, I joined to be in the community and to work on projects. She's like, no, you need to do fundraising on our big fundraiser. And I'm like, why? Like, did you see how many pastries you brought? And I'm like, well, that was easy. She's like, that's my point. Because I was so passionate about what I was working on with these kids that I would go to the bakery and be like, do you realize that what we're doing here is, and they're like, oh my God, we don't have time to do it. I will give you all the money and all the pastries you need because this is easy for us.
Yeah.
And I think for me, fundraising, and then of course I joined the fundraising committee and I blew the numbers without even knowing I was good at it because I spoke from my heart, I communicated the impact, and I was so passionate about it. And people couldn't say no. They're like, yeah, that's amazing. Like, and I think this is same with anything in life. It's like if you have passion and you believe yourself and you're not faking it, and then you can have a measurable impact, it's everything.
And probably being passionate about the product is being passionate about the larger organization too, I would think, right?
Yeah, of course, because you care about the employees because you care about the entire organization functioning well.
Right.
Yeah, I'm passionate about Uber.
You are a little bit, a tiny bit. Any other questions for Frederique? No? Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming.
It was fun.
So great. So great. Thank you. So we have some wine and some food and some nibbles. So come over and say hi.
Thank you.